Okay, so this week's tarot reading for the week ahead. I've created just a short spread short and simple spread just for this week. And we have 5 positions. So we have high points, we have low points, and then we have obstacles, what might get in the way this week. We have resources, what might help this week. And we have magic, because we've always got to have a bit of magic, haven't we, whatever else is going on. So those are the 5 positions for our reading. And this week I'm using the Druid Craft Tarot deck by Phillip and Stephanie Carr-Gomm. So just hold the booklet up there so you can see it. Okay. So I invite you to take a deep breath and just set your intention to receive what you need. And if there is something that you've been working with or working through or pondering at this moment in time, and you'd like some insight into that, then you can bring that to mind. But again, really focusing on that intention to receive what you need. And just allowing that to come in. Okay, so our first position then. What are our high points this week? What can we look forward to this week? And we have the 6 of Cups. So that's really interesting, actually, that coming up in this position of what can we look forward to this week, because the 6 of Cups, of course, is a card of looking backwards, or at first glance would seem to be a card of looking backwards. So it's often associated with nostalgia, with the past, sometimes with childhood. I like to see it as a card of gratitude. I believe gratitude's really important. I know the science on that. I know that research studies show that when we practice gratitude, we're happier. And when we practice gratitude, not only is the person practicing gratitude happier, but also our community, as the people around us. It has a knock-on effect. How wonderful is that? And I see a lot of the Cups cards as inviting in gratitude. And I always see the 6 of Cups as a card of gratitude. But there are also those invitations to reflect on the past, to reflect on what from the past has brought us here, to nurture our inner child if we need to nurture the future generations. So if we're adults, what can we pass on to the future generations? What can we offer? So all of those things are high points this week. So I would invite you to perhaps, you see here these kind of treasures, these riches of the flowers being played with in the cups. And the cups, of course, is about the heart, the emotions. I would invite you this week to practice gratitude in the high points, and to practice gratitude to achieve the high points this week. So I'll just place this up here. And then, although we would all like a lovely week with high points 24/7, there will be some low points. So what might they be, and how might we resource ourselves for them? And here we have the Empress. So Major Arcana card 3, the Empress. And the Empress is a Major Arcana card. So this is a card of our larger path. So the Minor Arcana cards I tend to see as representing situations, whereas the Major Arcana cards are more about life lessons and archetypes that we can call in as allies during our life lessons. And the Empress is all about the body and embodiment, can be about the earth, connections with the earth, all these kinds of things. There's an aspect of fertility and abundance. You see that the harvest that she has in her arms. So with this card coming up in the position of low points, it's not a card you might always expect to be associated with low points. So we could read it that even the low points might be quite abundant this week, and that's a nice read. And if we wanted to go into it in a little more depth, then we might look at what our relationships are with our bodies, what are our relationships with the land, with the earth, with our material existence, with food, all these kinds of things. And it may just be that we need just a little bit more nurturing this week. The lady, the Empress, is a card of nurture. And about nurturing ourselves as well as giving and receiving nurturing from others. So when there are like low points this week, and especially if you're feeling low physically, then remember that nurture is something you can do for yourself. And you can also you can invite nurture. You can share your needs with others. I was listening to a podcast the other day about neediness. The wonderful Ashley's podcast, who I know is on it in just under an hour on Insight Timer with some journaling and some reading. But they had a guest on who was talking about needs and your own needs. And it sparked this understanding or awareness that what she was saying is, it's okay for you to have needs and it's okay for you to state them. And so when we're in an adult state, we can say, I need this, that, and the other. And that's stating of our needs to our loved ones, the people around us. We're not expecting that they should fulfill all of our needs, because we can't expect any one person to fulfill all of our needs. But we're telling them what we need, and that creates space for nurture that is within balance for them to give, for them to be able to direct it in a way that meets our needs. So nurturing ourselves, certainly during any low points this week, but also learning to express how we'd like to be nurtured, so that for those who love us and have capacity and can nurture us in some way, they're able to do that. Okay, so what might our obstacles be this week? And, you may have an objective in mind for the week, and if you do, then these might be the obstacles to that objective. And what we have here is the 5 of Swords. So the Swords is a suit of the mind, mental energy, thoughts, narratives, beliefs. And the 5 of Swords is all about sort of conflict, as you can see here. One person has disarmed the person in the background, so one person's kind of standing tall with these swords, the other has no swords at all and is standing sort of, in a more defeated posture. And so in terms of obstacles, there might be some conflict. But this card, it's one of my favourites. It is a card of conflict. There are a couple of things in it that I always like to point out. One is that someone has been disarmed, and sometimes people need to be disarmed. So, if someone comes into your space, and let's hope this is metaphorical, but someone comes into your space, swords waving, you might want to disarm them pretty quickly. If you are going into other people's spaces with your swords waving, then it is appropriate for them to disarm you. So the question really that this card offers us, the question of the card is it worth fighting for? Because sometimes when we get into conflict, we get into arguments, and we just want to be right, yeah? And we want the person we're arguing with to know that we're right, to concede that we're right. So how do we deal with that? And some fights are absolutely worth fighting. Anything that is really about true justice of course that fight is worth fighting, but others are not, we get stuck in the process of fighting and arguing and being in conflict and wanting to prove that we're right, without considering the outcome of that and the consequences of that, how that will affect us in other ways. So think about what's really important to you here. And is it important to fight here? Or is it important to behave in other ways? And then, do you need to disarm yourself or someone else? Is someone doing harm? What's the best way to proceed? So in terms of obstacles and maybe disagreements, and again, we have an invitation there to think about what is important there. Resources then. What resources are available to us this week? And of course, resources can mean internal resources, our strength, our courage, our creativity, and there can be external resources as well. But usually in a reading like this, I tend to read them as internal resources. Let's see what the cards say. Okay, so Ace of Pentacles. Pentacles is about material in the body. It's interesting that this comes up above the lady, the Empress there. So this could be about actual material, physical resources around you, your shelter, your finances, your food, your clothing, the physical locations where you are. This can be there in that Ace of Pentacles. And also, again, with that being about the material, your body as a resource. Your body is a resource for healing. Your body is a resource for nurturing yourself. I think there really is an invitation here to be embodied, to be physically present with whatever's going on for us. And then with this being an ace, it's a card of possibility. It is a card of possibility. So aces, an ace of pentacles is possibility in the material realm. So there might be some material resources or physical resources coming in or becoming available to you this week. And the thing to do with aces, because they are a card of possibility and potential, we accept them with gratitude, and we work with them, and we don't necessarily need to be resting on our laurels just yet, because they are an ace, they're a beginning. So where we're offered these resources on the material plane, we need to take them, but we also need to develop them. So any resources that do come your way this week, make sure that you're developing them, helping them grow from that ace, from that potential, into something more solid, something that will last in the long term. And the Ace of Pentacles really are about long term when those resources are managed properly. And then finally, magic. Where is the magic this week? And we have it's another swords card, the Six of Swords. So this is interesting. This could be even in moving on, because we have a sequence here, 5 and 6 of Swords. In moving on from whatever obstacles that you have, that becomes part of the magic. And the Six of Swords is a card of liminality. There is a moving on. It can be about traveling, can be about switching between states. You see people here traveling across the water. You see they're in a barge which is guided, and the guide's face is hooded. So, there may be guidance in your journey, whatever your journey is, and that may be part of the magic for you. But the magic is in being able to switch in some way to a different state, to a different place, and with this being swords, to a different way of seeing the world and engaging with the world. So that is our reading for the week ahead. So the high points, we have the Six of Cups. The low points, we had the Empress or the Lady. the obstacles, we had the Five of Swords, resources, the Ace of Pentacles, and magic in the Six of Swords. So that is, that's our reading for the week ahead. I do see that we have opportunities to reframe our thinking, opportunities to be grateful, opportunities to develop, and opportunities to care for ourselves, and to care for ourselves physically, primarily, in all the different ways that we can do that. So thank you so much for joining me. I will be back soon with another reading.